Welcome to the second session of Samkhya 101, an introduction to Samkhya. Let me first ensure that our attendees in webinar mode are able to participate fully. They can hear me as well as answer as well as see me. Can one of you please write on your right side? There is a chat mode which I have enabled. Can you write that everything is okay at your end? If one of you writes that it's okay, then I get the message, because last time probably the link was not working fully. Yes, I am waiting for a communication from your end. On the right side of your screen, you can type in a letter like I can. Yes, I am here. Thank you very much. I have a response that link is working well. Okay, we go ahead. Again, welcoming you to the Samkhya 101 Session 2. Samkhya 101 Session 2. I will go to my screen share mode and share my slides. The course is titled as An Introduction to Samkhya, and devote a few minutes, just one slide, to review what we discussed last week. I tried to present the ancient historical perspective and described there was a dividing line, namely Mahabharata period, a great Indian war about 5,000 years ago. Prior to that, the history is about millions of years, broadly divided into three parts. First is Vedic age, when people followed the Vedic way of life and they had fantastic memory and other human capacities. They were superior quality of human beings. They did not need many other instructions, and they utilized their knowledge in the Vedas, which is both spiritual knowledge as well as material knowledge regarding the matter. The spiritual knowledge is at 100% saturated point, while the knowledge related to matter is in very nascent stage at the seed level. So they had an exciting life, childlike, innocent life, making new discoveries. And like we enjoy excitement through everyday new gadgets and new discoveries, they were also doing that. But as is the human nature, if you don't have your complete guard, then human quality degrades with time. That's what led to Upanishadic age. But it's not that the entire population became degraded. There was slight degradation in the majority of the population, but there were a small fraction of people who still possessed the parameters associated with the Vedic age. And then those superior people created the literature for the masses, that is called Upanishads, which have the gist of the message in the Vedas. Majority people could not store in their mind the entire Vedas, so there was a demand for the gist of the Vedas, and that's what Upanishad is all about. And it is more towards the spiritual knowledge, more about the spiritual understanding. Now there is further degradation, and then we enter into the age of Shaddarshan, 6 books of Vedic philosophy. The point to be noted is in the age 1 and 2, people by and large followed the Vedic message, Vedic way of life. But in the third age, they began to toy with the idea of a materialistic life. And then there was a need for the India to produce literature to convince the masses that look, if you lead materialistic way of life, you may gain short-term pleasures of life, but eventually you will not be a very happy person. You will not have the peace and happiness, which is what we ultimately desire. For that purpose, they tried to argue and convince that you must absorb the Vedic way of life. So they produced literature, 6 books, namely Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, and Brahm Sutra, also called Vedanta. And I tried to describe last this chronology and why this is of this nature, where the Rishi is arguing. So these books are different in the nature that they have argumentations. We are trying to logically convince others that it is in your own interest to follow Vedic way of life. And the last book here is more or less coinciding with the Mahabharata event, slightly before that. During these 3 ages, the rishis, who were the wise people, they produced another kind of literature, which is the fourth kind of literature called Vedanga. This is unusual in the sense this began to be produced right from the early times. So this is always there since very beginning. The objective of this literature was because the rishis could foresee generations will be farther away from the Vedas, even the language, even the phonetics, even the grammar, even the meaning of the words will become more and more obscure with the passage of time. So they were beginning to produce relevant literature so that the future generations, especially the scholars in the future generations, if they try to understand the Vedas and Upanishads, etc., will be facilitated, will be helping them. So I have talked at length as much as I could in the given time last week on this, and today we are ready to begin our study of Samkhya. Again, I devote a few moments for the nomenclature of Samkhya. I did say last time I was claiming, based on certain speculations, that the English word science seemed to have derived from Samkhya. Indeed, my personal study seems to indicate that it is a very scientific study of the universe we live in. As a scientist, we are always exploring the invisible forces that are working behind the visible world. What are the laws of physics, laws of mechanics? That is what a scientist is trying to unlock, trying to discover. So Kapil, in his own way, has presented that scientific inquiry which will help us what the universe is made of, where it came from, also what is our role as a human being. We are very inquisitive, why we are here, where we came from, where we will go at the end, because we know eventually every one of us will die. So the years we are here in, what is the purpose and objective of our life? How to make best use of it? That's what any scientist would be interested in knowing. And then how to improve our quality of life. Eventually we want, every one of us, peace and happiness. How to get it to its maximum capacity. And if it is truly a scientific study, I should be able to validate it. So a scientist will present a hypothesis, and a repeated set of experiments should prove that hypothesis so that it can be presented in the form of a theory or probably as a natural law. And I personally feel Sankhya, in particular Yoga, is a means to validate the principles of Sankhya. So not only he is presenting certain ideas, he is also trying to tell us how we can validate them. So of course, the final game of this Sankhya is for every human being to know through deep meditation that mind is my instrument and I am a owner of my instrument. Namely, your automobile is an instrument and you are a conscious driver, and an automobile obeys all your instructions through its steering, through the accelerator, through the brake, so that you transport yourself from place A to place B. That is the relationship between you and your instrument. Same thing applies to me and my mind. Finally, I am the owner of my instrument. So what he will trying to tell us is I should be able to bring my mind to an absolute standstill, inactive position. And at that moment, I will get to know my true self. So me, my true self is called Purush in language of Sankhya. And my instrument of mind is made of matter that is called Prakriti. So me and my mind, Purush and Prakriti, are two different entities. And when I get to know it, I have a very high level of wisdom. I have gained a high level of understanding, high level of maturity. And in view of Sankhya, in view of Kapil, that is the ultimate objective of a human being. So he will develop all these various arguments, and we will be studying it in a slightly relatively fast track in 12 such sessions. So you will see I will try to wrap up as fast as possible without compromising on the important ideas of Sankhya. The word Sankhya itself is coming from the word Samkhya. Sankhya in a routine sense means number. It is a compound word, a prefix sum and kya. Kya is when something is very clearly known, and sum is if it is known in a well performed manner. So Sankhya implicitly means there is absolutely no ambiguity, there is a proper understanding. Like there are two chairs lying in front of me. Two is a number, and if I say there are two chairs, almost all the millions of people will agree that yes, these are two chairs in front of me. So it is so clear statement that there is no ambiguity, no dispute. So that is what the basis of Sankhya philosophy is. This number also comes from the philosophy of Sankhya. Next week when we meet, we will start from his statement where he will list 25 primary elements. So since 25 elements are kind of his periodic table, his 25 is number, so that also gives rise to the number is also the meaning of the word Sankhya. So that also is the origin of the word Sankhya. This is also called Sankhya Darshan. The Sanskrit word darshan means philosophy, but darshan has a common understanding, is something that I am seeing. So it is as explicit as I am seeing through my eyes. So finally, the truth is what I can see, and seeing is believing. So in the Vedic nomenclature, philosophy is not just something I have achieved through a mental argumentative jargon. It is something I have really seen it. And if you have really seen it, you do really tend to believe it. So philosophy has a word, darshan, as if not the layperson, the person in this context, namely Kapil, he is writing Sankhya Darshan, probably he has seen certain truths which he is writing in his book. That is what is the origin of the word darshan. We have another word called rishi, and we give this title to a very superior person who is talking not based on empty speculations, but based on what he has really seen it. So that rishi word is also translated as seer, who has seen. And when he is writing a book, his book is called as Arsh book. So these are some technical terms. If you go into literature, you will be seeing that. So Sankhya Darshan is a book of philosophy written by a rishi, namely Kapil. Since it is authored by a rishi, the book is Arsh book. So we have a very high degree of affinity. Sankhya, authored by Kapil. And as I said, these are books written pre-Mahabharata period when there were no religions. Today the humanity is divided among number of religions, but we have an unusual concept of dharma, which is very universal code of conduct. So a lot of people get confused as if dharma is religion, which is not true. So look at Sankhya as the future unified theory. Today our scientists are struggling to define consciousness and to speculate what is the basis of consciousness, what truly is me here, what is giving me that strong belief, my I-ness, I am there. And if there is any other consciousness, who is the origin of this intelligent design that universe is? So all these are under speculation. But look at Sankhya's future unified theory of matter and spirit. And I firmly believe that in our scientific advancement in the next couple of decades, the philosophy of Sankhya and Yoga will be accepted by all humanity, entire humanity, as the unified theory that explains all the events we see in the world. So this is, and this can be validated by methods of Patanjali Yoga, by meditation practice. And if you are not interested in all this philosophy, just the beauty of Patanjali's meditation practice is so good that if you inculcate it in yourself, it improves your quality of life. You will be a better human being, whatever your profession is, whatever you are doing, whatever religion, whatever you are doing. So these are very positive things. Every human being should devote some time to learn what Kapil is saying and what Patanjali is saying. As I have said, existing religions appeared in the last 5,000 years in the post Mahabharata period, as if when all these teachings vanished, then to fill in the vacuum, these religions appeared where every founder tried to do his best. But if we pick up the philosophy of Sankhya and Yoga from Kapil and Patanjali, we can bring back that wonderful, peaceful world, which is no more an utopian in somebody's book. It can be a very realistic thing. Let's proceed further today with Sankhya. So I am showing you a slide. In first six statements of Sankhya, I am not jotting down the Sanskrit there. Just because my mind works with Sanskrit, I will read out so that my mind is in a particular frame, and then I will give you an example and translation in English, which is already in the slide. If I feel the need, I will elaborate it slightly. As I said last week, Sankhya begins with Atha Trividh Dukhatyant Nivritti Atyant Purushartha. So Atyant is a superlative word which is like absolute, supreme. Dukh is pain and suffering. So Patanjali, Kapil here is saying, in our day-to-day life, we come across three kinds of pain and suffering. They are usually called as Adhyatmic, Adhibhautik, Adidevik. It is due to myself. I do something wrong, I eat something wrong, I overeat it, or I don't see and I fall down while walking down the stairs. Certain things I do wrongly, and that cause pain and suffering. Adibhatik, somebody else does something, maybe a snake bite, or maybe a thief has come in, a burglar in dead night, took away my belongings from my home, things like that. Adidevik, due to some natural events, too much of rain, earthquake, tsunami, all kinds of things happen in the world. These are just broad categories, not that important, but it covers all kinds of pain and suffering a human being may go through in his life. And there is nobody in the world who will say, my life is without pain. And that's what life is. We make so many effort that is called Purusharth. Purush is my consciousness, and any effort made by me is called Purusharth. So my Purusharth, my effort is directed to get away from pain, which is there in the present, or what I am visualizing a future pain, and I make some preparation. Like I know a couple of hours in the evening, I will be hungry, so I prepare food in advance. So we always try to get away from the present pain and also try to foresee the pain in the future and make some efforts to minimize its effect and, if possible, to get away from it. That is called Purusharth. So the meaning is Atyant Purusharth. Here Kapil is telling us a method of absolute effort which will get us away from all kinds of pain in an absolute sense. This is an enormous responsibility for an author to take. So that is his confidence level, that he's trying to teach us something so that we will be absolutely away from all kinds of pain. So of course his coverage is very wide. Where does all this happen? What is this world? And that is what you can expect in this book. So in this small section of 6 statements, I have chosen the title Pain and its Cause. So 1.2 is Na dishta tat siddhi nivritti api anuvitti darshanat. So what is said is generally we see in our day-to-day life, we make an effort that we get away from one pain, but then anuvitti means something else comes in our life. Another pain strikes me. There is nobody probably who will dispute this statement. This is very obvious. We should accept it. Yes, that's what is likely to happen and is happening in anybody's life. But now somebody is trying to say, why to go into all this philosophy? There should be some simpler methods. Why to go after the so called absolute effort? Maybe there are common man's effort that can take us away from pain. So he gives an example of hunger. So the statement third is Pratyahik Shutpatika Tatpatika Chestanat Pusharthavyam. So what it happens is hunger is giving rise to a pain. Let's read the translation. The common man is saying in our day-to-day life we take care of hunger 3 times, 4 times a day. It it distracts me, I feel hungry, and I eat delicious food that takes care of it. And this man is smarter, he is well off. He says, I have all the means. Even before I feel the pain of hunger, I eat good food. So I don't even feel the pain of hunger, which a poor man may feel. Sometimes a poor man remains hungry and has to go to sleep. But this man, particular man, is saying, I have earned enough money so that I am leading a lifestyle that I never feel the pain of hunger. Before it strikes me, I am sitting on the dining table and enjoying the food. So, like I take care of hunger, I can take care of other pains also. But then Kapil is countering it in his next statement, number 4. Sarv asambhavat sambhave api sattva asambhavat dheya pramad kushaleh. So the wise man is saying, pramad kushal means who has gained enough wisdom in his life. He is saying, wise people say, who have gone through, who have gained maturity, they say that, look, all pains of are not like hunger because there are a lot of pains which are unpredictable. You cannot, hunger you can predict it. 6 in the evening you will be hungry. So you start eating at 5:30. But there are a lot of pains which strike you unpredictably. You are not even prepared for it. And there are a number of pains, sufferings, which have no remedies in the world. There are a number of people suffering from cancer, isn't it? Though medical science has advanced so much. So he is saying either the pains are unpredictable, not as predictable as hunger, or there are so many situations when you have no remedies. So your statement number 3 is not valid always. So that is what statement number 4 is refuting the statement number 3. We are discussing pain, it goes on. Then number 5, Kapil offers. Kapil points out, Utkarshad api mokshasya sarvotkarsh shrute. As you will see later, and as I have tried to say, Vedas are treated as ultimate authority, referred to here as Shruti. So Kapil says that There are a lot of statements in the Vedas that we should desire to achieve a state called moksha. So, moksha is a state where there is no pain and suffering. And that is achieved only with the Atyant Purusharth, supreme wisdom, supreme understanding. So, Kapil is now offering a statement: supreme wisdom is the only solution because the pain has those problems. And not only Kapil is saying that, Kapil is taking support of the Vedas also. He says Vedas also describe it, so we must examine, we must understand what is that supreme wisdom, which of course will I will use that term again and again, is Vivek Khyati, knowing that I am different from my mind. But now this lay person who is more oriented towards action oriented. So Jnana and Karma, knowledge and action are two working dimensions of our life. We use our instruments of body and mind to acquire knowledge, which is incoming knowledge. And then we act in a different myriads, multiple ways in our life, that is outgoing action. So, as I have remarked in session number one, a lot of people emphasize action oriented life. And there are a lot of scientists and philosophers, they like to live knowledge oriented life. But of course, finally, we have to have strike a balance. We want to lead a life with both knowledge and action. But the philosophy of Sankhya and Yoga go one step further. Because both knowledge and action require the instruments of body and mind. So they have visualized a third dimension of human life, which is relevant only for human beings, where you, the master of these instruments, the Purush, is disconnected from all the instruments of body and mind. That is what is deep meditation, when your body and mind are thoroughly inactive. We get to know that state in deep sleep also, Shushupti, dreamless sleep, but here the objective is to get it in a sitting mode, in a conscious mode, and that is what is going to lead Vivek Khyati. So Vivek Khyati is a third dimension of life because a common human being is always using the instruments of body and mind, whether he is in the knowledge acquisition mode or is in the action mode. But Sankhya and Yoga are trying to tell us a third part of life when we are disconnect from our instruments of body and mind. So the statement number 6 is coming from an action oriented man. He is saying that, look, yes, I follow the Vedas, but Vedas also talk about good selfless actions, Nishkam karma also, philanthropic actions, working for the benefit of others without any selfish motive. So he points out this direction in 1.5 also. To that, in 1.6, Kapil is giving a final answer to this entire discussion. His answer is avisheshascha ubhaya. Ubhayo. Ubhaya means both kinds of actions. Whether you make personal efforts to get away from hunger, or whether you engage yourself in grand philanthropic actions, opening hospitals, schools, and orphanages, both personal and philanthropic efforts cannot bring the desired result, which was the objective mentioned in 1.1, namely, I want to get absolutely away from all kinds of pain and suffering, because there are a lot of people following the life of 1.6. They are engaged in personal positive efforts or philanthropic efforts for benefit of others, and we see that they also do not lead a life which is absolutely void of pain. So Patanjali Kapil is trying to suggest that the supreme wisdom of Vivek Khyati is very desirable. But why do get into this problem? Why the me and my mind came together at the first place? Why I find myself as a human being in this world? This is called as bandha in Sanskrit. English translation is bondage. Now Kapil is discussing the nature of its bondage. Is it very our innate nature that we have to be bonded with our mind? If it is natural for us, if it is so inherently natural, then how can I aspire to disconnect from my mind? So he is examining in the next five statements nature of this bondage, and he declares in 1.7 na swabhavato baddhasya moksha sadhano upadesh vidhi. So he is declaring that bondage is not the innate nature of the soul. Suppose it was so, then why Vedas would tell us to seek liberation? If it was so, had it been so, Vedas would not enjoin us to seek liberation. Because in the Vedas, there are a lot of statements encouraging us to acquire the wisdom so that we are liberated from our own mind. That would not be there if we are finally destined to always be in the bondage. So Kapil offers this statement trying to convince others that supreme wisdom is a desirable path. It is not that we are always to remain bondage. Then somebody counters Swabhavasya. Let me say this is the statement one. This is again Kapil's statement. He is saying Swabhavasyan payitvad anushthan lakshanam apamanyam. What is saying that there is a thing and it has its innate nature, its own characteristics. This is called Nam and Roop. Nam is the thing and Roop is all its characteristics. They are two sides of the same coin. If we say the water has soothing sensation, then if there is water, it will have this. If this characteristic is not there, that is not water. So water and its characteristics go hand in hand. If water disappears, then that characteristic will also disappear. So but Kapil is trying to say the innate nature of anything is integral part of that thing. So he is saying what he means by innate nature. If there is the Upadesh, if there is a teaching of liberation in the Vedas, it means the soul, the Purush, is without bondage. That means the bondage should not be the innate nature of the Purush. If it was innate nature, Purush can never be out of this bondage. So he is declaring that bondage is not the absolutely innate nature of the soul. And then again he says, if it was unachievable, 1.9 is na ashakya updesh vidhi updishte api anupdesha. If something was impossible, Vedas would not teach us that. Vedas would not guide us in an impossible task. So 1.7 and to 1.9, Kapil is authoritatively trying to say, since Vedas is trying to teach us liberation, there should be a way out, and that is what he is trying to teach us. and that is the bondage is not our inherent nature. But still, the layperson is raising an objection. In 1.7, in 1.10, he gives two examples. Shukla patvad bijvat chet. Chet means suppose it was so. What he is saying is there is a white fabric, but white fabric is a thing and it has a characteristic of whiteness. But we know it. We can get it dyed. You can dye it with a yellow color, then it becomes yellow fabric. Then it is no more white fabric. So he is giving an example of a white fabric. Whiteness is its characteristics, but we can adopt a mechanism that it has lost its whiteness. He offers another example of a seed. A seed has a power to germinate and become a plant, etc., and a tree. But if the same seed is planted in an arid land, it doesn't germinate, it doesn't give rise to the kernel, which can become a plant. So it doesn't give the characteristics which it was supposed to give. Then Kapil counters it. So this is Sutra Shali. So he is countering it in 1.11, saying Shakti Udbhavan Udbhavanab Udbhavabhyam Na Shakyopdesha. So he's saying, but this dyed cloth could again be treated to bring back its whiteness. Like we have dyed it with yellow color, we can find a chemical that will undye the fabric so that that yellow color is again washed out and it will come back to its original whiteness. As far as that seed is concerned, we could cultivate that land with adequate fertilizer, adequate care, so that the seed is able to germinate and give rise to a plant. So he's saying there are mechanisms to take care of the inherent characteristics of those particular things so that they maintain their characteristics. And there is the two examples that have been offered are not violating the principles what Kapil has offered. So this is, he's trying to argue bondage is not the true nature of the push of the consciousness, and there is a mechanism which Vedas are telling us. So we should explore the mechanism to seek liberation when we get away from all kinds of pain and suffering. Let's continue. What I have discussed, I am summarizing now, and then we go into another section of about 14, 15 statements. Up till now, Kapil has argued that innate nature of a thing is part of the integral part of that particular thing. That being the case, and the Vedas enjoin us to seek liberation, bondage could not be the innate nature of the soul. It requires a supreme effort different from the personal and philanthropic efforts. That supreme effort is what Kapil is going to tell us about. Let's move on to next 13 and 14 statements from 12 to 25. Now he is discussing what is the cause of bondage. We have discussed the nature of bondage. So here I should have had a subtitle, Cause of Bondage. Is it? So he is looking at many parameters, one after another. I will just go fast because of the time limits here. So now it is saying, statement 12 is, Na kal yogato vyapino nityasya sar sambandhat. So he is saying, time, nitya is eternal. So it is not that the bondage is eternal, because we hear that great seer, Vamdev in particular, attained liberation, etc. So it is not for all times to come. Therefore, time is not a parameter that puts us into this particular bondage. Bondage is the push, the me, the owner of the mind, the soul, consciousness, has been bonded together to the mind, which is made of matter, while the soul is non-material, what is called Vayu Anilam Ammetam, undying, unmanifest. So these two things have been brought together. We are now examining what is the cause of this bondage. If I know the cause, I can work it out to sever that cause, to remove the cause, to seek liberation. So now he is getting into examining the cause of the bondage. One by one, he is removing a number of possibilities. The time parameter is not the cause of bondage. If it was, at any time, all of us should be bonded. But it is not so. Then he is saying, Na desh yogato api asmat. Desh is space parameter. Even that is not the cause of bondage. Na avasthato dehedhamatvat tasya. It's not the body condition, dehedha. Body was in infancy, childhood, adolescence, the youthful stage, then eventually we are very old. It goes through the, but all this happens to the body. It doesn't happen to me. This cannot be the cause of my bondage. This is just visible changes in the body. Asango ayam purushiti. Sorry, this is 115 now. Yeah. Yeah, that is asango ayam purushiti. Kapil is reminding us the Purush is asanga. He is going through no manifestation. So the previous changes were only to the body. Like even as an old man, we can think of our childhood as if we have transported ourselves into that childhood. We have that ability and we disconnect from our old age body. We begin to think as if I am a child and I went there, did this and that. So this is because I have inherent capacity. My push is basically asanga. It doesn't get so much connected that it becomes like that. It preserves its own attributes. Then it is saying, number 16 and 17, na karmana nyodharmatvad ati prasaktescha vichitra bhoganupapatte anya dharmatve. Both are talking about karma. One person does particular kinds of karma, another person does another kind of karma. Somebody is doing good to others, somebody is causing harm to others. There are infinite people doing infinite kinds of karma. So all this is myriad of activity. They could also not be the cause of the bondage. Prakriti nibandhanat chetna tasyapi paratantyam. The matter itself could not be the cause of bondage, paratantra, because Prakriti is also not swatantra, is not quite free. It is merely an instrument for some other consciousness. So the word Purush here is coming from our individual consciousness as well as the infinite consciousness, which will be referred to as Ishwar in the later part of the Samkhya, who is the prime mover, who is the authority to make the Prakriti, the matter, behave the way it is behaving. We know there are natural laws of physics, but if there are laws, there ought to be lawmaker also. And that supreme being is the lawmaker. So that's what Kapil is now referring to. Matter could not hold me as bondage because matter doesn't act of its own volition. Matter is not free to act. So nobody can say matter. If a car meets an accident, we don't say the car did the accident, the driver caused the accident. Because the car is in the hands of a conscious being. So even if matter, so here you have to be careful, and I will say it again in few minutes next. Matter could be the means of my bondage because my mind is made of matter. So I am being bonded to with mind only, but it is not the cause of my bondage, isn't it? I will use this metaphor. Say somebody has bound me on a chair using a rope. Rope is not the cause of my bondage. My cause of the bondage was that powerful man who could tie me on the chair. Rope is the means by which he has bonded me. So, in the same way, matter will be seen here as the means of bondage, but not the cause of bondage, because it is also working as guided by another supreme being. So, that much he has discussed in 1.12 to 18 to negate what all could be causes of bondage for a layperson. And then in 1.19, he offers the nature of the Purush, nature of my consciousness, to remind me that this is the inherent nature of the soul. So the statement is Na nitya shuddha buddha mukta swabhavasya tad yogas tad yogadyate tad yogadyate. What he's saying is the soul is by its innate nature, he's using four terms Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta. Nitya means it is eternal, it doesn't go through any transformation. Shuddha is pure because it is not touched by anything. If something is pure and clean and no dust can ever settle on it, it will always remain pure. So is our soul. Buddha is, it is having that consciousness, which is what it is. It is the light of consciousness. That's what makes the difference between living body and dead body. And mukta is, it is void of manifestations that mind and other things go through, because though it is in the proximity of mind, it is not like mind. Our mind goes through the transformations. Sometimes it makes us feel happy, sometimes it makes us feel pain, sometimes it makes us go to sleep. All these so-called three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, which we'll study next week, they are there. They are the attributes of my matter and my mind. Though myself is in close proximity of it, I am not going through those changes and transformation as if I am away from it, I am free from it. But I am not fully free. That is why I am seeking liberation. But I am not so much connected that my innate nature has changed. I continue to preserve my attributes of Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, but in a transient manner, I am getting affected to what is happening in my mind. That is what I am finding myself in, as if I have been bonded to something. That the changes in mind I am treating is as if they are changes to me. That is what is bondage. Let's look at some more statements from Patanjali. Now it is 1.20. Na vidyato api avastuna bandha yoga. Now he offers the true reason of the bondage. Previously he had negated the other reasons. Now he says, finally, I am in bondage due to what he calls avivek. So this is a technical term he is using, the avidya, which is not to treat a thing exactly what it is. So that has caused the bondage because I am struck with so called lack of wisdom. So this is why I am saying again what I tried to say earlier. The nature of bondage is that the soul is bonded to matter. Purush and Prakriti, also called as Pradhan, they are bonded together. And this Prakriti is matter that has bonded me. So matter is not the cause but merely the means. Please try to understand it. As I gave you the example of somebody has bounded me to a chair using a rope. Rope is not the cause of bondage. The cause is I was weak. I couldn't protect myself and allow myself. I submitted myself to a more powerful person. The function of rope is merely the means. So this is what is here. The actual cause of bondage is lack of wisdom and the matter, the mind is only the means of bondage, not the cause of bondage. Now he is examining in detail what is this avivek? What is this lack of wisdom? Is it really a thing? If it is a thing, it should be an independent entity. So now he uses the metaphor of light and darkness. We enter into a hall, absolutely dark, and then you put a switch on. Now there is light. Now there is no more darkness. But did you see darkness leaving that room? Did you see darkness leaving through the door or through a window that was open? Somebody said, what is this foolish question? Darkness doesn't leave, it just disappears. How did it disappear? Once there was light, there is no more darkness. So there is either you have darkness or you have light. If there is if there is light, there can be no darkness. So darkness is exactly not quite a thing. It is absence of light which is darkness. Isn't it? So that is what is the nature of avivek. Avivek is like darkness. It is not quite a thing. It is just absence of vivek, absence of wisdom, absence of knowledge and understanding. If the knowledge is missing, like a child is not knowledgeable, he has darkness in his mind, isn't it? Which we all had at a time. And now we have gained some knowledge. Some of our darkness is vanished, but there are still a lot of darkness in our mind, isn't it? So darkness is not quite an independent entity. It is merely absence of light, which is darkness. So that is what is the nature of it. Let's look at it further. So his statement is tad yogo api avivekana samanatvam vipayat bandha. So darkness is like absence of light, primary niyat karanat taduchittat dvantvat. So he is now saying dvant is the darkness and there is a specific cause of it, namely the light. If you just make a lot of sound, darkness doesn't go away. It is not afraid of your sound. But if you give a small beam of light, darkness goes away. So similarly, avivek will disappear if there is right kind of wisdom. Pradhan avivekad anya avivekasya tadhane hanam. Now he's saying that there is a primary avivek. The primary avivek is not lack of understanding that Purusha and Prakriti are two different. If this primary avivek disappears, all other secondary avivek also disappears. Like, for example, a common man has a avivek that my body is me. If there is a hurt in the body, he says, I am hurt. But I am not hurt. My soul is not hurt. So this is he is stating because of his lack of avivek, lack of vivek. But this avivek that my body is me is secondary avivek. Primary avivek is right that in the inner shell of mind, that I am different from my mind. So once that gets removed, all the secondary, all everything else will also get removed. Now the layperson says, of course, is it not possible to know that I am different from my mind? I read so much of literature, Vedas and Upanishads, which say that I am different from my mind. Then Patanjali, Kapil is saying in 123, mere words are not that gaining that wisdom. You have to gain it experientially. Just like what is apple pie? You can read a whole book, but never have eaten it. You cannot claim I know apple pie, isn't it? In the same way, when you say Purush is different from Prakriti, you have to experience it. Until then, it doesn't make sense. So, what Vedas are saying are merely motivating you to walk that talk. Just merely gaining that wow talk is not enough. So 1.24 says literature talks, but an inquisitive wise man must walk the talk. And now in 125, that's where I'm closing today, because you are talking now about experiencing. Seeing your Purush and Prakriti, which are not visible to the eyes. So he is making a primary statement. Chakshuranam anumanin bodho dhumadibheyavan. He is saying in day-to-day life, it is not that we see everything. We see something, then we make an inference about any other thing which is not visible. He offers an example of fire and smoke. Sometimes from a distance you see smoke, but you are not seeing the fire. But then you say, because I can see the effect of the fire, namely smoke, I make an inference that the cause, namely the fire, must be there. Similarly, he's saying the wise people make an inference out of what is seen, and then they go back to the root cause of it, and that's what he will utilize in the next statement 1.26, which we will a summary of this part. Soul, which is called Purush, is bonded to matter, Prakriti, because of its avivek. Matter is not the cause of bondage, but the means of it. Avivek is lack of supreme wisdom, is not an independent entity. It is merely the absence of the vivek that gives rise to the avivek, like the absence of light is darkness. And that light, vivek, is gained, as in the case of darkness removed by light. So once I gain the vivek, avivek will vanish. Like if I get a source of light, darkness will vanish. But then he says this is not gained merely by words, by hearsay, but by direct experience. Thank you all for your attention. Sorry, I exceeded 3 to 4 minutes, and I hope to see you again next week. All the best. See you next week. Have a good time.